Okay.
So
So
this is
again,
live streamed on Facebook,
yeah,
so people can, they don't necessarily have to come into the Zoom.
right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
All set,
Nice.
Amy.
All right. Okay. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate your coming, well, tuning in, I guess is a way to say it tonight. I'm Amy Antonucci. I'm a board member of New Hampshire Peace Action, and I'm really glad to welcome you to our Peace and Justice Conversation series online for Monday, July 28th, 2025. Tonight continues our programming that marks the 80th anniversaries of the US atomic bombings of Japan. Tonight, the format is a little bit different than those of you who attend regularly know, because we are going to watch a short film together. Sometimes we have you watch something and then join us, but the film is 20 minutes, so we're going to do it here all together. And then after that, we'll be talking with the filmmakers, Michael Dwyer and Chuck Gomez. Let me do a little bit of intro here, though. I want to take a moment and acknowledge that we in New Hampshire are doing our work on the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Wabanaki, and Pennacook peoples, past and present. And we honor with gratitude the land, the water, and those people who have been in relationship through so many generations. I think you know, let's see, I'll go over some other things later and introduce the filmmakers. What I'm going to do right now is just hand it to Michael. He is going to say a few words about the film and then play it for us. You ready, Michael?
I'm ready. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Amy and Doreen and everybody at New Hampshire Peace Action for setting this up and allowing Chuck and I to share this film. Real briefly, it's a 20-minute short documentary. It's about the life of Tomiko Morimoto West, who was a survivor of the bombing at Hiroshima, August 6th, almost 80 years ago. And yeah, it was real sort of a chance meeting with her through a mutual friend in Beacon, New York. Tomiko lives outside Poughkeepsie. Um, and her story speaks for itself. Tomiko is a very inspiring person, despite all that she's been through. And we finished the film about 3 years ago. We've been lucky enough to show it in a bunch of festivals in New York and PA and Connecticut. And we're always just happy to show it, even if it's one more person that gets to see her story and gets to think about this issue about nuclear weapons. So appreciate you guys coming out tonight virtually. And that's really it. We can, chat after the film if you have questions or comments. And so I will share my screen. Whoops. That's not what I wanted. Let's start over.
Well, I'm nearly going towards 90 years old, but my spirit is okay. My spirit is willing, but my body isn't sometimes. My name is Tomiko Morimoto West. I live in La Grangeville, New York. My husband was an American soldier. I was employed by Japanese government. I was able to come to U.S. to go to school in Menominee, Wisconsin. Got married was amazing because he was stationed in Georgia. They will not marry us, because I was non-white. My husband got very angry more than I did. But anyway, so we went to South Carolina. It's called Aiken, South Carolina. Then it was okay. We got married there, May 18th, 1957. My husband, after he got out of service, he wanted to become undertaker or become a barber. So I told him he's not gonna become an undertaker because I don't want to have dead people in the house. But anyway, so he became barber. So he had the shop in Wappingers Falls for 40 years. He had macular degeneration, so he couldn't see too well. Actually, a year and a half ago now, he passed away. I get up first thing in the morning, and I pray, and I burn incense for my husband and my parents. I believe in life after death. I think that makes you want to become good. I said to my husband, you gotta watch over me because I'm gonna drive now. I said, you gotta bring me back safe, and I always come back. I said to myself, he's always watching over me, so everything's gonna be okay. And it does. I could be mourning for him and cry every day, but I refuse to do that. Because, I'm gonna join him one of these days. We'll meet again. So, I tell him, don't call me too soon. I say that every morning, don't call me so soon. My life is good. When I was only 6, but I still remember him so well. He used to take me all over the place, put me on the top of his shoulder. My mother always told me, he never actually left us. I was brought up like that. I still feel like, he's with me. So very lucky. During the war, we didn't have much to eat, right? And we had to scrape that bowl to, get all the food out of it. And my mother hated that sound. So even now, whenever I scrape something, I think about her. She didn't like that. But anyways, I still do. Timmy, my nephew, they always check up on me and see if I'm all right.
I've been coming up here since I was a kid, and it's funny because every time I would call Aunt Tomiko, and she'd say, "Hold on, I'll get Mel." I said, and we used to get so mad at her because we'd say, "We like talking to you too." So finally now, I'm sorry that Uncle Mel had to leave us, but now she understands that she was a major part of this family too, that we do enjoy talking to her.
Yeah, I appreciate that though, really. I don't have any family here, right?
Well, and it's funny.
You have us.
I know.
She is basically the major part of our family now.
Mm-hmm. I will never forget though that time that you called us, or was it Uncle Mel that was saying that there was a bear in the yard?
Oh, the bear.
Oh.
Yes, there's a bear in the yard, and so you told her to make sure you go make noise.
Yeah,
just make a lot of noise.
I just said to yell out. I was saying just yell out the door, make noise, and they have a bell over there.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I hear ding, ding, ding.
And this is all. I have the phone sitting on the table on speaker, and you hear Uncle Mel. Make it loud! I'm making it loud! Ding, 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 ding! All this is going on, and Tim's like, don't go outside! She's out there, go away! Ding, 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 ding,
said, I didn't say go outside. So I said, hold
so
on, I'm
funny.
right there. I'm grabbing one of my guns. I'm ready to jump in the truck. And Uncle Mel says, never mind, the bear's gone. I'm like, oh, dear God.
Just all those
Yeah,
stories.
but I'm so glad I have you guys.
Oh, well, we're so blessed and happy to have you.
Thank you.
You're a role model. You know,
For whom?
you always say to me, "Oh, stop making my head so big." But it's not. That's not why I say that. Because I say it.
No, I know, but you
With true
overestimate me.
No. Because most people to go through what you went through would not be like you right now.
Without
Most people would be
With no bitterness either.
right. That's what I'm saying. You know, a lot of us would have bitterness and you know, and always complaining about the. And you're not. You're happy. You're content.
Yeah.
You know, you're grateful.
Yeah, but you know, it doesn't matter what you encounter. You think back how bad you had it. Hey, this is a heaven, you know.
Well, the
That's
thing
how I
is,
feel.
that's the way to look at it.
Yeah.
But most people don't
They
look
don't.
at it that way. You know, they always
Wow.
live in the past, and
Tell them
you
to come
don't.
here. I preach to them.
I've learned a lot from you over the. Let's see,
I always
gone
say,
on almost 10 years.
when I
and
grow up, I want to be just like you.
that's what I always say.
Years ago, I was in the truck driving, and I stopped for lunch, and I'm just reading the paper, and I'm just looking at it, and I see this thing about Hiroshima survivor, Tomiko West. I'm like, and I knew nothing about this. She never said a word. I'm like, what the heck? I recognized the face, and I know who Tomiko West was, so I had to wait till I got home, and like, Uncle Mel, what the heck's going on? I knew nothing about it. Long story short, he says she really didn't like to talk about it, but she's feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I've been after her for years. I said, yeah, Tomiko, you have got a story to tell. And that's understandable because my Uncle Mel told me it was hard for her to talk about.
Actually, we are living through this, you know, history right now, right, with COVID-19, right?
Right. And what you survived, we can clearly survive this.
Oh yeah, this
Clearly.
At least you can get food, right?
Yes.
Thank goodness for that. You can get toilet paper too now.
I know, you know, it's funny and it's not funny. You know, people are all worried about, you know, the toilet paper and the paper towels and all this, and look what you lost.
I know.
You know, you
You
went
just don't
without
worry about-
everything.
you just don't worry about
we're all
toilet
worried about toilet paper. It's like
I know. That's why I said some people
makes you
don't.
think.
They don't realize just how good they have it, and it's like,
Oh, how good do we have it here?
Yeah.
When I hear people complain, I said, go live in some other country for a while,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, we're going through some tough times. I mean,
Oh, right now. I was only 13 then, so, you know, it's kind of, your parents, they don't know anything. You know, I knew everything. So I was arguing with my mother, and I left the home slamming the door, never thinking that would be the last time I see her, right? And that's why I always say to people, you know, don't leave home angry, at any rate. When you leave home, you always have to hug your family and tell them you love them. That was 8/15 to be exact on that day, August 6, 1945. We were outside for school assembly, and I saw the B-29 flying around. I could tell that was B-29 by the sound because we were trained to identify the enemy plane. I thought they were just coming to take, you know, pictures on the ground, never thinking they were carrying any kind of bomb. And suddenly I saw the flash, and then everything started falling. So that was the first atomic bomb, I believe. I mean, I know, not I believe it, I know. Atomic bomb dropped, And, my life had changed.
From the instant of that first blast, Hiroshima vanished from the list of living cities. Closely guarded plants in New Mexico.
3 days later, I came down from the mountain and trying to go home to where my home was, but that's cross from the other side of the city, and there was nothing left between. So I finally got where my home was, and of course it was already burned down. My mother, I couldn't find her right away, so I kept on running from one place to the other looking for her. But when I found her, her body was half burned off. So I identified it was my mother by her part of her clothes, and but anyways, that's what happened. The bomb came, I think building fell down, and she was under the building. So hopefully she died instantly. But I always say I shouldn't have argued with her, right? I still think that today. I found my grandparents in a bomb shelter. My grandfather's back was pierced with the broken glasses, and my grandmother, she couldn't hardly stand up, I guess, due to shock. But I did find them, and I stayed there in a shelter. It was packed with the people that are wounded, or most of them died. My grandparents and I are by ourselves. My grandfather died, and my grandmother died. So soldiers came to pick his body up. They'll put him in a mass grave. And I stood up. I was only 13. I said, "You're not taking my grandfather." I said, "No," I said, "I'll burn him myself." And I gathered all the trees from the mountain, and I set the fire. It took 3 days to burn him. I didn't want him amongst all other people. So I was glad I did that. Well, I started the Vassar College. I was the first one who started the Japanese language there. And I was there for 22 years. Then 1985, I was able to have my own classes. In the meantime, I acquired so many good students, and whom I am in touch with even today.
I guess the point is she never got on a soapbox about anything.
All of you are very lucky to be able to come to such a good college as Vassar.
You would imagine that someone who had gone through unimaginable trauma related to nuclear war could have come out with sort of a huge chip on her shoulder and a big, speech that she wants to give everybody she meets. And Mrs. West has done none of those things.
I first met Tomiko West in 1994. That was the year she retired, and I first joined the Vassar faculty. Tomiko is a very modest person. She didn't tell us about her wartime experiences at first. I learned about her experience at Hiroshima later. So once I heard about that, I thought this is a very important piece of history to share with our students and the faculty. So I started to introduce her to student projects. When students hear her speaking of her personal experiences, it was very moving moment. And what makes us feel especially appreciated is that she not only, brought us to that horrible scene of atomic bomb, but she also shared with us how she survived and the way she looked at the past trauma. So she inspired in us hope and resilience. Today, the tension between nations is accelerating, and armed conflicts is everywhere in the world. So it's very important for us to remember what happened in the past. And Tomiko is very aware of that. She has a strong commitment to peace building and history education. I think she is a really valuable asset to Vassar community, to our entire community in the States. We need to remember that and to learn from her.
One can become almost anything when time comes. And I'm from Hiroshima and I'm very strong, stubborn too. I'm a citizen, and I feel though it is Americans' duty and a privilege to vote. I waited on the line of 1 hour. I was born in Japan, but I appreciate living in this country. I am very patriotic. It is very difficult, but then because of the war, I get up in the morning, fresh air, right? After the bombing, didn't have that. So I think that made me a better person, if you will. Just my whole life is appreciation. Ever since I came to America, all the good luck somehow came to me. People whom I met were very nice. I could have met somebody real, not so nice, but I never have done that. So. A lot of people, they ask me if I feel animosity against to Americans who actually killed my people. But I never had that kind of feeling. One has to forgive and forget. Sometimes you don't forget, but you have to forgive. So that's how I live my life, It's pretty lucky that way.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Michael and Chuck. We're gonna get to our conversation here. I just sort of wanted to pause. I had told people at the last event that we had, which was much more about policy and politics, and I kind of said that was the head part of it, and this week would be more the heart part, and I definitely feel this in my heart. This amazing woman and her story. So, folks, I am going to be turning it over. And let me say a little bit about our two guests tonight. Very little. They have all sorts of wonderful biographical info I could go on about, but I don't want to take up too much time. So let me just say that we are joined by Michael Dwyer, who works as a graphic designer, but whose true passion lies in socially engaged art. And he has co-produced a number of short films, including Watch, Rising Tide, and Mom and Pop, which have been showcased at film festivals worldwide. We're also thrilled to have Chuck Gomez join us. He's an award-winning cinematographer, educator, and the founder of Roots and Renewal Scene. He'll tell us how to say that. A creative studio dedicated to telling transformative stories rooted in sustainability, heritage, and human resilience. So I'm gonna hand it next to Michael, and he and Chuck are, I think, both gonna say a few words, and then we're gonna go into a Q&A discussion. You can use the chat starting now, and then we'll do hand raising in a little bit as well. So, Michael.
Yeah, thank you again, Amy, for setting this up. Thank you to everybody who's come out tonight to watch this film. I don't know what to say. The film speaks for itself. I just will say a little tiny bit. When I started making this film, it was really about Tomiko and her story, and that's what it's about. But, I wasn't really what I would consider an activist, or I wasn't really thinking about nuclear weapons that much. But during the past 4 or 5 years of making the film, showing the film, connecting with other groups like yours, showing it at colleges, showing it, anybody, high schools, anybody who wants to see it. I've done a lot of reading and educated myself about nuclear weapons, about the current state of them and the history, and it has become a passion of mine. So, I'm kind of late to the party, you might say. I know a lot of people have been working in this arena for decades, but so that's how I see the film, as a way to at least, educate young people who don't know anything about this issue, sort of remind people who do know about it, but it sort of gets pushed out of the headlines because of other things. So that's my little spiel. Chuck, you want to say something?
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name's Chuck Gomez. So thank you, Amy, for the kind words. It's Roots and Renewal Cine. So like using cine as a cinematographer and cinema. So yeah, I just as Michael mentioned, this movie has been a journey. At first, when Michael and I started making the process of this film. It was pre-pandemic. It was, my God, it probably was like 2018. We started this journey together. We were making another film. Michael does, before the pandemic, Michael was doing a lot of work in prisons, doing a lot of art, kind of performance art, not performance art, but more like sculpture art, teaching inmates how to work with their hands with paper and paint and stuff like that. And they kind of sell it on to making paper-made cranes. So it's just like this, I guess, if the history of cranes goes, in a sense, it's kind of not Tomiko's story, but it's more in tandem, like more of an underlying thing when it comes to peace building. And so that's how we met Tomiko. Michael had an exhibit up of the cranes he made it with his students at the local prison upstate outside of Beacon, New York. And then, one thing happened to another. One of Tomiko's friends invited her to that art gallery, and basically it wasn't like an art gallery, it was like a glass shop turned into an art gallery. And then Tomiko came in, and then we met Tomiko on this day of that we were there of the opening of the crane exhibit. And then Michael was so just thrown back and just touched by Tomiko's story in her life. He really wanted to make a movie about her. And of course, me as a filmmaker, and it's like, the happen to be in the third eye, I was kind of just grueling. What's the story? What's the story? What's the story? And Michael's like, what are you talking about? What story? It's her life is the story. So, we went back and forth. But as we started to make the film, our first interview was the really bright shot of her with the kind of sun in the background and the really high contrast scene of her hair kind of just glowing. That was the first time with her. But then eventually we had to keep going back because, as her nephew mentioned, that Hobakusha, which is a lot of the Japanese individuals who experienced Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they don't like to talk about their experience because some people's very traumatic experience. So over time, they started to really share bits and pieces of her story, and I think that's what she did with us personally. She gave us a little nugget of her life, and then me as trying to push the story. What's the story? We kept going back and back and back, and I'm so glad that we fight to go back because towards the end of our journey, she was able to really unleash everything to us to a point. At that point, we were just like, we would come over to her house to film, and first she would just feed us rice and all this other stuff. And then we to develop a really heartwarming relationship even to this day.
Yes. Yeah, Tomiko is alive and well. She's 93, living outside Poughkeepsie in LaGrangeville, New York. And her niece and nephew that you see in the film are taking care of her. She's no longer really able to go out or travel or be at events, which she used to do a lot. Sometimes people want to know, like, what's her current status? That's what it is. She's on Facebook, like her nieces post pictures of her getting a haircut or her birthday or singing a song or her cats, stuff like that. So it's, she has a lot of fans in the community up there.
Yeah, wow. That's lovely. We're getting some nice messages in the chat. Folks, also remember you can ask questions, or we're also open to reactions, I think, to the film. And I actually had one that I wanted to share that
Please.
is sort of, it's a little broad, given not just about nuclear weapons, but about this moment that we're in and watching the horrors going on in the world. And the idea that she went through this incredible trauma that really could have made her not just bitter, but a traumatizer. This is a cycle that happens, these cycles of violence, and that people, what they don't deal with, they inflict on others to some extent. And I think we see that in too many places in the world right now. And I'm sure there's not an exact answer, like how could she do this? But I'll just say it is lovely to see that she was able to, that this is another thing that we have in us to, transcend these, something so horrifying, rather than let it turn us into a monster as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I see Ken has his hand up, or had his hand up for a while.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Hold on. Oh yeah, your background made that very hard to see, but Ken, there you go. It will let you unmute now? Thanks for noticing, Michael, and good to have you, Ken.
Yes, hello everyone, and I have to say, I started the day out very kind of angry, and this kind kind of brought me back down to earth, and really made me. It was very moving. My story is I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the '60s. I'm an immigrant, and I can remember very distinctly April 4, 1968. That was the day Martin Luther King was shot, and there were riots in my neighborhood. I lived in a Brownsville section of Brooklyn, and that, like, my trauma of just seeing that, fires around me and stuff. But you press on as a kid. I was only like 10 years old.
Mm.
And I learned to, like, use the subway and go around the city. And um, what made me angry was today I see the demonization of immigrants. The current regime that's
Mhm.
in power has used immigrants as a demonization. And this lady, is also an immigrant.
Mhm.
Her what she came through is nothing compared to what I came through. And if she can come through with that sort of outlook on life, that she can forgive, and uh, it just was very inspiring to me to think about it, and for you kind folks to present that. So yeah, it's kind of very emotional for me. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
So it's interesting, like, Tomiko in the film, and also, we were in the process of making the film, she's not really a politicalized person. I think she really appreciates, like she said in the movie, she really appreciates living in the moment. And then it's interesting because we didn't put this in the movie, but we kind of allude to it in the beginning montage of her kind of like in the kitchen and making coffee and stuff. Every time she makes rice, she has a moment of like trauma because the rice reminds her of her mom. And then I guess for some Japanese citizens, when they make rice, they're making rice in a rice cooker and stuff. So she had a rice cooker and she used to make rice for us. And then sometimes the rice gets kind of scraped in the bottom, which just gets kind of hard, and you got to scrape the bottom. So when she starts to scrape the bottom, she stopped and she had a moment of like time of this little traumatized moment of just remembering that moment of her mom, and it kind of brought it back to the 80 years ago and stuff. So and then but I think she uses those moments to remind her just the value of life, and that she needs to learn how to kind of forgive the humans who inflicted the bomb on her, but in the same time what she can do to like teach a different way of living. And so that's what I really kind of love about how she lives her life day to day.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if there was a question here going back to the specifics of her story and how she survived after the bombing. She didn't really, she said a little bit about that, but is there more of that you know and can share? Either of you?
Yeah, I put in the chat. Yeah, I don't. So one thing people ask, and this is, we kind of found some stuff we found out, after the film was complete, but I think number one, because she was at school in the playground, and I think she thinks because she was sort of behind this some sort of cement wall, um, is why she survived, number one, why she just survived that day, that hour. Um, like she talks about, they went up into the woods, into the mountains, which is where the bomb shelters were. Um, I'm not sure exactly how long she stayed up there. She eventually moved in with other, related family cousins. Um, and she talks about, the reason she became a teacher and decided to teach at Vassar. And it was one of her teachers when she was still a teenager. And her teacher would bring her food at school because they didn't, like many people, they didn't have enough food. And that kindness from her teacher inspired her to want to be a teacher later in life. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things I don't know. That, and to be honest, when I was interviewing her, because she's very open and she's very almost matter of fact about it, sort of. But every time, like any kind of trauma, when you have to talk about it, you then forces you to relive it. And to be honest, I wasn't conscious of that as I was interviewing her because I mean, I was trying to be sensitive and delicate and see how much she wanted to. But because she doesn't get very emotional, rarely, and she's always upbeat. She's always cracking jokes. She's always just being very silly in between, the stuff you don't see, the stuff off camera. So, um, anyway, that's just some more background. I don't know if that's
But to be honest, truth, I mean, we started the process of making the film with her. We started 2019, like
Yeah.
a year before the pandemic, right? And we kind of got the surface story, and then the pandemic happens, and then when things started to open up, you know, um, for something in me, I was just trying to just push. I think I was getting Michael annoyed, but I was keep pushing and pushing. Like, hey, we gotta squeeze this lemon a little bit further, right? What's there to squeeze? What's her present? So it's kind of funny back and forth tennis match between the two of us. But she every time we came back, she would tell us another aspect of the story, and I would imagine, like, I do appreciate, Ken, your experience about the MLK experience back in 1960, April 4th, and how that event has triggered you even today. And then for many Americans, even my mom was experienced that event when she was in her young age. My mom is 78 now. No, she's actually 80 now. So she talks about that day when MLK was shot. It was a pivotal moment in her life, and so just imagine the atomic bomb dropping on you. And so I think the reality is it did take time for Tomiko to give us the full story, so it took us maybe 2 years to actually get the full interview ish. And I guess I was pushing for a longer film, but it worked out to be a very nice, beautiful short film. Even to this day, this film has become very evergreen for me because there's some lines in this movie that stick with me about I'm from Hiroshima and I'm strong. How much, to be honest, like, do I say that to myself every day? I'm from the Bronx and I'm strong. Some days, no, I don't feel that way. Right. But, and then the other line is that having appreciation. And then the one line that's very, very strong is that I can't remember what she said, but she was alluding to, like, I could be very bitter on America for dropping the bomb, but I don't because, America's just because of this experience, I'm learning to forgive America, but I also don't want America to forget what happened. But at the same time, America has brought me some beautiful joy. Her husband was American, and they got married. They couldn't get married in the South, and she had a beautiful life here in upstate New York. But I think that the crazy thing about it, even as an educator, we don't talk about what happened, in Hiroshima or Nagasaki, in the collegiate or even the high school system in our history books. We're not talking about it. Our youth, my kids, I have two teenagers. They're not talking about this. So how can we get this talked about? Because I too am concerned about the state of affairs in our country right now, beyond what's going on with immigrants, but what's going on with our Constitution, right? Things are happening beyond that, and I'm afraid that someone's going to have the powerness to go beyond the Constitution and press the button, and there goes our first bomb somewhere in the world, and then they're going to retaliate against us.
Well, thanks, Chuck.
Yeah.
That we certainly have been talking about how incredibly dangerous these times are, and how we need to pay attention if we don't, if we want to stop a even greater calamity. We have some hands up. I'm gonna see about, oops, it's not letting me. Chris, is it gonna let you? Yeah, there you go.
Hello. Thank you so much for showing us the film and for making this film. For me, the big takeaway is that Tomiko shows such a model that's so needed, the model of forgiveness. And it's so hard to imagine that being highlighted in these times when there's so much retribution and revenge, and when our seems like our U.S. foreign policy is built upon grudges and resentment about things that have happened in years ago or decades ago or centuries ago. And Tomiko is such an example of approaching things in such a different way, and it's just wonderful to see that. And it would be wonderful to be able to spread that around instead of the culture of grievance that's so much a part of what we hear and what we read and what we talk about. Even ourselves trying to be examples of peacefulness, but we dwell on the grievances too. And I guess her example and understanding how she's done that is really essential for us to try to get a handle on, because we're going to need that.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Another hand, Christian, I think is maybe. Ryan, can you unmute?
Now I'm able to unmute. Thank you so much. I first want to thank Mr. Michael Dwyer and Mr. Chuck Gomez for your mission with this film, and I want to thank all of the staff at the Peace and Action Network for allowing this space for us to discuss this amazing and important part of history. I wanted to share my reaction to the film very briefly.
Please.
And I was thinking about or looking at the destruction, as many of us have seen the bombs fall in many images. This is not the first time we've seen it. And every time I see it, it just reminds me of the indiscriminate nature of the violence of the bomb. As it falls, there's never like, I don't remember hearing the government or any scholars talk about that there was a particular place that wanted to fall, was like just kind of fell indiscriminately. And you couple this with the very heart-wrenching illustrations where you just see all of these bodies in the river and they look like skeletons. All of that just shows how anyone and everyone is affected by this. Tomiko's story, very powerful and very moving, but of course there are so many others who have that same story because it's so far-reaching, because this bomb just destroyed so much. One of the most powerful parts of the film, even as horrific as it was when she was able to burn her grandfather's body, because she didn't want him to be indiscriminately, I'm gonna use that word again, thrown with others, nameless and just kind of forgotten. And as hurtful as that was for her, I'm sure, it was a sense of agency in her loss of innocence, in her loss of the way of life. And I keep hearing everyone talk about how, wow, she's so happy and the way that she handles everything, and she seems so, joyful. And honestly, I would not be upset with her if she was angry. We also have to allow for the range of motions with trauma. And I think the range of motions, if we allow that, that leads to the peace. Anger galvanizes us in many ways, not only for the bitter, but it can galvanize us to make change, to lead groups, to revolutionize institutions that are not doing what they're supposed to. But then she also said something about forgiveness. And so forgiveness to me, for her, was the bridge to peace. If she couldn't forgive, I don't think it would have allowed her to have that peaceful nature about it, to come to terms with it. And the final thing I'll say is that, interestingly enough, I thought it was just going to be solely about her life in Japan, but seeing her migrate to the United States, beautiful story about how she was able to restore and to build all of these other relationships. But I also noticed that the trauma didn't end there in Japan. She experienced, what the miscegenation laws and racism. So that was also intertwined with her story. So I noticed that as well. That did not go unnoticed with me. So those are just my reactions. And again, powerful story. I will be sharing this documentary with my network as well. Thank you again.
Oh, well, thank you, Ms. Chris. Thank you very much. That's interesting you brought up that part, because if we went to, like, I guess 15 film festivals so far, and no one really mentions that part about they came home from the South, and the South refuses to marry them, and I mean, mind you, I mean, of course, Black folks was more prominent of being discriminated against during that time, but the fact that, Asian folks were also discriminated against to a certain level. And the fact that what we don't talk about that much either in school is how Japanese American citizens back during World War II were in concentration camps because of just them being Japanese ethnically, but they were American citizens. So, and it kind of goes back to what's going on today with a lot of American-born immigrants or American-born people from, Latin America or from the Caribbean are being, just thrown into cages, and, people are not, and they're American citizens. So things comes in circles. But you're right, the anger, right? She wasn't angry with us, or she didn't really show that anger with us. I don't know if she was angry or not. I can't really say, but she didn't share it with us. But I guess she really wanted to kind of share a bit of her transformation, more to seek. And I think at the end of the day, she really loved her husband, and she met her husband in Japan, and her husband was the one who kind of took her to America, and she just really loved, how her husband helped her to go through this transformational experience, and then then kind of shockingly, Tomiko is a very conservative person, and and we're kind of shocked to hear about that, but but that's what she decides to live her life with, and this is fine. But I think beyond her conservatism and me being a little bit liberal, we were still able to unite on her story, her life, and her achievements, and her struggles, her battles, and we still can leave the table, like someone else just mentioned on the call, of creating peace, regardless of what our political view is.
We are almost at the end of our time together. I see a couple more hands have gone up, and there are some things in the chat. We're not going to be able to get to all of this. Richard, can you be real quick? I think you'll be able to unmute now. Go ahead. You need to unmute. You should be able to. Yeah, I don't know. Something's not working. Oh, there you go.
Yes. no one has mentioned the number of people, an estimated number, 180,000 people were
Yes.
killed when those bombs went off in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The
Yes.
thing that really, and I love the film. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And to see the strength of Tomiko is very, very moving. And I love the idea of forgiveness. But she says she's not going to forget. And I think the way she lived her life is going to be a message to people. It certainly was a message to me. It's gone on since the beginning of time, these slaughters, these mass killings. We do them one at a time. I've just been involved in Gaza and what is going on there with the Gaza Peace Hour for 1 hour, where you watch these people being slaughtered, and nations just standing by doing very little. But it's been going on since the beginning of time. What are we going to do to stop it? I'd love to hear more of a dialogue about that, how we can change, how we can bring about change. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Ken, can you be real quick? I do need to wrap up, but you can.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I got it back together now. So I was just going to say, I guess a rhetorical question would be, is for me that I have is, are human beings genetically coded to be aggressors and violent? I don't know. I work with kids, and when you put young kids together, let's say 5-year-old kindergarten kids, they all seem to form a community. They all seem to get along, play with one another. So I don't know if it's inherently encoded in human beings, or is this something we learn as time goes on in society? So I guess the question, if it's learned, can we unlearn it? If it's coded into our genetics, what can we do about it?
Thanks, Ken. I am going to have to wrap things up. I will quickly say, that's a huge question.
Yeah.
One that fascinates me, and I've done a lot of reading on. And I will say that I am careful nowadays to talk about Western culture versus others, because there are other peoples and other cultures that were on this planet for a real long time without doing such horrible things. And I don't think we can say human nature is one thing when all this indigenous history shows us that people have existed in other ways and made other choices. But great questions, lots of things to say. I'm going to let Michael have a last word here before I wrap up. Right, Michael?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Really great questions. They're mammoth-sized questions. I personally believe, every individual, we all have potential for great good and great evil. Every second of the day, we make a choice to do something positive, how to react, so whether it's learned, whether it's nature, nurture, it's any one of us can create value or create misery. I work very hard at creating value every day. I'm not perfect, so I'm a firm believer in, all we can really affect. I mean, I'm all for protesting and getting involved and trying to change the government, and I'm all for that. And that's why I'm showing this movie. But I really believe the most impact we can have is in our communities, in our families, in our workplace, in our local communities. And that seems like a daunting task when you have governments, deciding to do terrible things. But I think I think it's, if I can affect somebody at my workplace or my community, that has lasting value. I don't know why, like, I don't think any individual person wants to hurt someone else. Somehow when a government gets involved, it becomes something else. And that I cannot explain because it's about money, it's about greed, it's about power. I mean, anyway, I don't really have the answers. These are just like random thoughts, but I just want to thank Amy again for setting this up. I want to thank everybody for, giving us your Monday evening here. Feel free to reach out anytime. You have Amy put the website in the chat, or she can feel free to share my email with anybody who wants to talk more or show the film at another event or whatever it is. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Michael. And let me go into my wrap up. First, let me say that we are an activist group. So let me share a couple resources with you. First of all, preventnuclearwar.org is a website for Back from the Brink, a group that we are a part of that is taking concrete actions on all levels, from local town hall politics to stuff at the White House. And one of the things that they are currently working on is HRES 317. And I put the link, you can look that up and find out if in your state, if your representatives have sponsored yet. There's 28 reps on it, but we need more, calling on the US to lead us out of a nuclear arms race instead of into one. So let me say let's see, what else? Yeah, okay. So a few other things. This series is free and open to everyone, but it means a lot to us when you contribute. And nhpeaceaction.org/donate is where you can do that. Please keep up with us at nhpeaceaction.org. Also, this is a long-standing series. We've been doing it actually we started this in July 2020, every other week since then. And most of our programs, including this one, are on our YouTube channel, which I'm putting into the chat. And so go check out what else we've done, and including some conversations around human nature and nonviolence and sort of these bigger picture questions that it was exciting to have come up tonight. A few things that we have on the events calendar right now. First, a few in-person ones. Wednesday, July 30th, 2 to 3 p.m., we will be outside Representative Pappas's Dover office for a ceasefire now, aid to Gaza vigil. Then similar one, Thursday, July 31st, noon to 1, will be City Plaza, Concord, New Hampshire. And then the following week, Wednesday, August 6th, 2 to 3, we will be outside Senator Shaheen's Dover office. Also join us in Concord, New Hampshire on Saturday, August 9th, 5 to 6 p.m. for our Hiroshima Nagasaki Remembrance Vigil, which will meet at the shore of the Merrimack River at 15 Loudon Road, Concord, behind Everett Arena. And then we have 2 online programs I want you to be sure to notice. This Thursday, July 31st at 7 p.m., we have a New Hampshire Peace Action Acts. It's a little awkward to say, Zoom, and we are going to take collective action together. This one is focused on Palestine and Palestinians and how to end the nightmare they're going through and get them help. Postcards for Palestine is one part of what it will be. And it will be 1 hour, and we hope to see you. Our next Peace and Justice conversation will be Monday, August 11th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's titled 3 Paths to Healing Our Divides, with Joel Berman, Nancy Jo Shabbat, and Scott Dickman. Our 3 speakers have chosen to step into spaces where there is division and find ways to connect and build community, choosing hope and human connection over despair and isolation. I think there'll be some similar themes as to what we explored tonight. So thank you all for being here. And join me in like very visible thanks to Michael and Chuck for taking this time to be with us, engage in this, and for the amazing work they did in creating this film and putting it out there. It's very valuable, and thank you all for being a part of this.
Thank you.